Welcome back to Let's Fix It. If you're mowing your grass and you're leaving stragglers like this here, where you get clumps of tall grass in the middle of your mowed grass, your mower's not cutting consistently, there's a couple of things you can do to improve that. One would be to cut your grass more often and not let it get this tall. The other is take a half pass. That reduces the load on the mower. The other thing you can do is you can sharpen your blades. I'm going to show you how to do that today. Yeah, so here we are, about 2/3 of the way through mowing the yard, and the mower's run out of gas. This is the time to sharpen the blade. So to start this job, we're going to need 5 tools. You need a block of wood, you're going to need a flat file, you're going to need a half round file, whatever size wrench you need to get the blade off your mower, plus an extra wrench, and I'm going to show you why in a minute. We're going to start with safety. Locate the spark plug on your mower right here and pull this boot off the spark plug. The reason you do that is when you're taking the blade on and off, you'll likely turn the motor over to get the blade in a good position. There's a chance the motor could start that would cost you your fingers. That brings me to the other part of this. The reason we ran the mower out of gas is in the event that it would try to start, it wouldn't have any fuel to run on. All right, now that we've taken some safety precautions by disconnecting the spark plug and letting the mower run out of fuel, we're going to turn it up on its side. This may cause a little bit of the oil to run into the valve train. It's going to smoke when you turn it back up right. Don't worry about that, that'll clear right up. But because it's empty of fuel, we won't be leaking fuel anywhere. Doggone it, we might want to clean that mower while we got it turned over. That's a pitiful, pitiful sight right there. That's clean enough. Now I use the pressure washer because that's the kind of guy I am. You could take this to your car wash and do it, or you could just use a garden hose and a scrub brush. So, now we go to take a mower blade off. 5/8 wrench. You're gonna be tempted to hold the blade and do this here. You'll notice I'm holding on to the sharp end of the blade. Doggone it. Yes, you can use gloves. They're made out of material that'll cut. Don't hang on to the blade. All right. If you haven't followed the safety precautions, this is another way to get your fingers cut off, because when you try to untighten that, you're turning this in the direction that it wants to start. Get a block of wood. There's always a nut underneath here that block of wood will catch on. All right. So now, blade secured. If you're old and weak, or old and weak like I am, use 2 wrenches. Take the second wrench and hook it right here on this first wrench. And this will give you the leverage to loosen that easily. All right. Now your blade is off. Doggone it. I didn't plan for this lesson, but here it comes. When you're mowing your yard, you're inevitably going to hit something. Don't yell at the wife or the kid that's mowing your yard. Don't be hard on yourself either. This is the blade hub. This one is busted. That's fine. These come off generally pretty easy. This is a 11/16 hammer wrench, just in case you're wondering. And if you'll join me at my local hardware store, we'll get a replacement. They're not very expensive. All right, so here we are at my local hardware store, and we've got a pretty good selection of outdoor equipment here. Over here on the right, we've even got pieces to repair garden hoses. Who knew? On the left, we got trimmer string, spark plugs, air filters, got some wheels if you break a wheel, belts. We've even got blades if you don't want to sharpen your blade. Right up here is what we're after. That's the hub. It's a universal adapter kit, $9.99. You can buy that at the Big A store, and old Jeff will get him a new boat. But for the extra $2, you support your local economy, and we have the part in hand today. You can't beat that. One of the things I know about these hubs is there's really only a couple different styles. This is the most common one. If you got a Briggs & Stratton motor or Intech, this is probably the one you're going to get. When you call the parts guy, they're going to want to know the make and the model and the year of the mower and the color of it, and there are all kinds of bunch of information that you really don't need to know. Nothing like getting the biggest hammer in the box to pound it on with. All right, one other thing I'm going to tell you on these before we let this go. These are engineered to break. All right, if you hit something, they're designed to break. I've hit something and bent the shaft on this motor. I'm sorry I didn't do videos back then. I would have showed you how to straighten a crankshaft. It's a little bit complicated. The point is, these are designed to break to prevent you from bending the crankshaft on these motors. This new hub comes with a new tensioner and a new bolt. We'll go ahead and use that. Now back to sharpening the blade. There are a good number of ways to sharpen a blade, from using a bench grinder to using an angle grinder to using a belt sander. But I'm going to assume that most people don't have those tools in their inventory. So we're going to do it with a file. Files are cheap. You can buy them again at your local hardware store. This blade here has been hit. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to add a hammer to this. We're going to take that ding out of it. All right. So you'll see that straighten that right up. Now I am going to use a vise. You can do this by hand. Billy Bob Thornton did in that Sling Blade movie. But it's much easier if you have a vise. So the first thing we're going to do is use a rasp file, and I'm going to reposition this camera a little bit. There we go. Now when you're using a file to sharpen a blade, you want to go with the edge. If you go against the edge, you'll be fighting this file all the way. All right, on this mulching blade, this is sharp all the way through, and you'll see there's two different angles on this. You don't have to sharpen this radius in here. That radius doesn't do that much for you. All right. Use the rasp. The rasp will take a lot of metal fast. Then we're going to switch over to the flat file. Now I'm going to show you my bad habits right here. Everybody will tell you not to drag a file on a backstroke. All right, we've got the surface dressed up pretty good. Don't worry about all these little nicks and chips. They're not going to detract that much from a sharper blade. We're going to turn this over and take the rough edge from the bottom. All right. Now last thing we're going to do is we're going to take one or two passes off the front of this, because what happens when you're doing this, you'll feel the metal on the edge just rolling back and forth. If you sharpen this to a razor edge, it'll dull really fast. So we're going to take that razor edge off. All right. Let's see if we can see that. All right. Now all that little rough nicks that we were looking at a minute ago are gone. What that is, that was just metal that was too thin. That there is not sharp enough to shave with, but that's more than sharp enough to cut the grass with. All right, so there we are. We're not shaving with this, so I'm not going to worry about this one little nick right there. There is such a thing as balancing the blade. You haven't taken enough material off of this really to warrant balancing it. So I'm not going to do the balancing. All right, putting this back on is just reverse procedure. All right. Now one thing I'm going to caution you on, make sure your blade's on right side up. All right. This is upside down. The lift edges are down. So make sure when you put it on, make sure your rolled edges are to the bottom, that your lifting edges are to the top. I've worked with guys that do this for a living and they put them on upside down. It just happens. All right. So there we are, finger tight. We're going to go back to the block. Don't forget the blade is sharper now, and now it will potentially cut through your gloves. I'm sure there's a torque spec to this. I don't have it. I'm still going to use the same old trick I showed you in the beginning because I'm old and weak. All right. Move all your parts aside. We're going to put the spark plug boot back on. Don't forget to do that. Remember, we're out of fuel. We're going to put fuel in it. I'm going to check the oil while we're down here. I can see it's got plenty of oil. There you go. Once we get fuel in it, we're ready to go back to mowing. Well, that's how I sharpen a lawnmower blade, and I found that works pretty good for me. If you like what I'm doing here, please hit the like button. Also, please subscribe and tell your friends about the channel. Thanks for watching Let's Fix It.